The 0-2. Swing and a miss, strike three. Wrap this one up in green and white.
Hello, RailCats fans, and welcome back to another edition of the RailCats Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Savetich, and today we will be discussing 3 new people, a part of the RailCats organizations. 2 people will be in the dugout, and 1 person will be in the booth with Ryan Zimmerman. And we are 23 days away from RailCats baseball officially opening day. May 11th is 23 days away. Now, I know we'll be having some spring training games, I think a week or 2 prior to the May 11th start, which I want to address real quick because as I'm looking at the current roster, there are 29 out of 28 people on this roster. I believe you're supposed to have 28 players before spring training starts. The issue is that 29th player is not Adam Heidenfelder, but it is Trevor Lubking, who was injured last year, only pitched 1 game with the RailCats. I think it was opening day that he did injure himself. So that leaves the question is, what happens, that contract, I'm not sure how that works. If someone could explain that to me, I would be greatly appreciated. I'm not sure how that works because it seems like everyone is on a 1-year contract, and the 1 year is up. I know that he was injured, so I don't know how that works itself out. I know it was a season-ending injury, so I'm not sure what works in that aspect of it. But speaking of Adam Heidenfelder, he is not on the current roster, so it doesn't look like he will make it back to the RailCats this season. I've heard through the grapevine that he did retire. Now, I'm not saying they might not come back. There have been plenty of people that have come back in the middle of the season, even though they retired. I can't think of the gentleman's name, the player's name, who came back. Was it from Milwaukee? I think it was. He retired and came back halfway through last year. So I was listening on This Week Association. I forgot the name. I think it was a couple weeks ago that came through. But speaking of that, speaking of, rosters and stuff like that, season preview will be coming out here shortly in the next couple of I don't know if I'm going to wait until maybe after spring training games are over with, just to kind of get a feel for what I think the roster is going to be like, or I'm just going to wing it and kind of go off. I may wait until after spring training to kind of give a full season preview, be able to watch some other teams and see how it's all going to kind of revel around. I think having a good week of just seeing how the RailCats are playing and what I think the starting roster and opening day roster is going to be like. I know I kind of teased that a couple weeks ago, but that was, the roster was still incomplete, and we were still on the fence about Jesus Mariaga. Now we know that he is back in the lineup, so it's going to be interesting to see. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to get into why we're here today, why I decided to do this podcast. So April 14th, which is about 4 days ago, the RailCats announced that they hired, or Lamar Rodgers picked 2 more staff members for his coaching staff, a new pitching coach and a new hitting coach. I know last year, I think it was Guy Sinjum was the hitting coach. Then you had Darnell Robinson, who was the hitting coach. There was that, and then you had Tom Thornton, who was the pitching coach. Obviously, he is no longer with the team. So I don't know if Guy Sinjum is back with the RailCats, because he was like the third base coach. So I don't know if he's just like the assistant manager. I'm not sure how that works out. That's all I know is right now we only have a 3 coaching staff with Roman Ortiz, who is the new hitting coach, and Kent Willis, who is the pitching coach. Roman Ortiz, as I look through his minor league stats here, he is a native of Venezuela. He came from the Montreal Expos, way back, Montreal Expos. He was a free agent signing, an international free agent signing in 1969. But as we kind of look around here, looking at his stats, He debuted with the Expos. I believe it's not the major league team, but it's the GLC, which the Gulf Coast League, which I think was like the rookie ball league kind of deal. In the handful of games he played, he went 6 for 23, 3 walks. And then he played for West Palm Beach Expos. He went over for 3 strikeouts. He split 1970 with 3 Expos Farms clubs, hitting 237, on base percentage of 303 and slugging of 272. In 36 games, he reached AAA in 1972 with the Key West Conchas. I think it's like the Conch Shells. I think that's what they're going to go with. I think that's how, but he only batted a 173 on base percentage of 239 and a slugging of 256. But really, Roman Ortiz's forte, as you would say, is going to be the realm of coaching. And my lord, does this gentleman have a resume and a half. He has been everywhere from the East Coast to international, to the Midwest, to the West Coast. He's been everywhere. So Ortiz originally coached for the University of Central Venezuela from 1983 to 1985. And then from 1987 to 1995, he coached in the St. Louis Cardinals organization. That's where majority of his, I would say his tenure, the longest tenure he had was with the St. Louis Cardinals. Back then, in the late, early-ish to 90s, late 80s to the 90s. That's a lot of numbers, all right, that I'm looking at. But I would say his longest tenure with them. He was a roving outfield instructor from 1987 to 1991, which, looking up the definition, really doesn't. There's no real definition to a roving instructor. They have like roving catchers. But what I've gained through the roving instructor is that he bounced around through the entire organization. Not so much the MLB club, but like all of the AAA affiliates, the single A, the double A, the low A, the rookie ball, that kind of stuff. He was a rover. He roved around, so he got he has the experience up and down the roster. He knows what the players have to kind of go through, what the grind. Now, granted, when you look at the time, this 40 years ago, as I know I don't. I'm only 26, but that kind of it makes me feel old when I say something's 40 years ago or whatever. 15, it's just like I'm getting to that point to where it's kind of realizing, even if I say 30 years ago, it's getting to the point to where I start realizing how old I'm actually getting. But that's beside the point where I'm getting at on that one. But then he coached the Johnson City Cardinals in 1989 and the Savannah Cardinals in 1992 and 1994. Like I said, he was roving quite a bit there, and kind of jumped around between coaching and being a permanent coach and roving. So like some of these don't kind of add up to a certain way. Then with the New York Yankees farm system, he was with from 1996 to 1998 with the Greensboro Bats in 1997. Then he moved to the Tampa Bay Rays Devils chain from 1999 to 2004. 4 years with the Hudson River Renegades, followed by 2 years with Bakersfield Blaze, and then the Los Angeles Dodgers changed from 2005 to 2007, including a Virgo Beach Dodgers in 2006 and the GLC Dodgers in 2007. He was the hitting coach for the GLC Cardinals in 2008, and the Batavia Muck Dogs in 2009, the Johnson City Cardinals again in 2010 to 2012, and then State College Spikes in 2012 2013, 2014 Palm Beach Cardinals in 2005, and then finally Springfield, Missouri Cardinals in 2016. So like I said, a majority of his time that he spent was with the Cardinals organization, which, to be honest, is a pretty good organization to be around. They've had a lot of people go through in and out through their rosters. One World Series, was one of the dominant ball clubs when I was a kid, in the early 2000s, mid 2000s era there. They were pretty dominant. They were always seeming to win a World Series. At that time, it always kind of seemed like it was the Cardinals, or the Yankees, or the Royals, that kind of stuff. So it was like in that kind of realm there. So he is a very well, his resume is very well put together, and I think that is what Lamar Rodgers is wanting, is a resume that is wide and broad and just not single to one, just a handful, years here. This is wide variety. Now, I granted it may be old school coaching, but I don't think Lamar Rodgers is bringing in people that are technically old school, because Lamar Rodgers is a new school coach. He has gone away from. Now, I don't know really so much. That's another discussion for another time. But I don't really know much that he has gone away from the old style as far as just adapting with baseball in general, because baseball has gone from a small ball to a big ball now, that's seeming to even itself out a little bit, with the new rules. But that's for discussion for another time. But I think Lamar Rodgers is bringing in people that have experience, that have seen the game change, that have been at all those levels, because that's the experience that you need to have. He has coaches that, necessarily don't maybe want to be with the big clubs anymore, just want to be kind of one area, don't want to jump around as much, and that would be the area that they would be at, that kind of stuff. Now looking at Kent Willis, who is the new pitching coach. Well, actually, let me take that back. I forgot. Lamar Rodgers has, this is what he had to say about Ramon. He says, a well-traveled coach, Ramon brings 20 plus years of professional experience working with hitters of every level in the game, not only in the MLB, but in the Dominican Republic. Then he goes on to say, his knowledge, his calmness, and ability to relate to our Cats hitter should play well over 100-game season. He comes highly recommended from reliable MLB contacts, and I look forward to his impact on our RailCats team and hitters. Like I said, looking at the RailCat roster, there is a lot of Dominican Republican players, Venezuelan, that Colombia, that kind of realm. And I think Lamar Rodgers has constructed himself a roster, and he wants the coaching staff to relate that roster, and bringing in Roman Ortiz, being able to relate to most of these players that's on this RailCats organization. I think that's a big boost for the RailCats. They are making moves that aren't just a quick fix. Hey, we're going to fix it now, and then maybe in a couple years we'll be in the same spot. No, he is not doing a quick fix. He is looking at the long haul. Seems like Lamar Rodgers is making this, I want to be here, and I want to make it my team, and I want to make it successful. And I'm not talking successful for 2 years and sputtering out. No, I want to make this a long tenure to where we're successful in multiple years and multiple seasons, where we're making the playoff consistent years, not just barely missing them or being at the bottom of the standings. This is where it starts, as the coaching staff. Now, like I said, a lot of this coaching staff has a lot of experience and a lot of years, so not necessarily are they going to be with the RailCats for a long time, but it's bringing in that experience. And I think Lamar Rodgers has done a good job of mixing. I think we have a mixture of young players, but then you bring in coaches that have been through the development ranks, that can can help mature and develop these players to be successful for years coming, and hopefully that they one day are able to move on to the affiliated ball. And then when Lamar Rodgers starts bringing in new players, different faces, that the train kind of keeps rolling a little bit with that. I think this is a spot to where the RailCats can start being successful again. Like I said, I'll probably have a discussion of how I think Lamar Rodgers' plans make going forward and how bright this future actually is. But I'll get to that in a different podcast. Let's go ahead and we will get into Kent Willis. Here, he is a native of Columbus, Mississippi, and he is heading to the RailCats after 15 seasons with the Atlanta Braves organization. Recently serving as high A as pitching coach as high A as Myrtle Beach in 2010. He graduated from University of Southern Mississippi. The Cincinnati Reds drafted him in in the 12th round in the 1986 MLB draft, going on and playing 4 seasons, professional split between the Reds and the Expos seasons. But looking at his stats here, his last season actually was in 1988 in Rockford, Illinois. So he is very familiar with the Midwest, the Chicago area, which I could only imagine, which was probably pretty close to where Impact Field is now. Well, not Impact Field. That's in Rosemont. I'm thinking a whole different city. Hey, I caught myself. A whole different city. Screw that last idea I was thinking about. But in Rockford there, with the Expos on that season, in that season there. So he's familiar with the Midwest a little bit. But looking at his stats, his overall career stats as a pitcher, he had 19 wins, 20 losses, an ERA of 4.29, runs against average of 5.40, games played 77. He started in 43 games, finished 10 games, had 6 games complete. He had 3 shutouts. He didn't have any saves. He was more of a starting pitcher. He pitched in 315 innings, gave up 309 hits, 189 runs, 150 of them were earned, 19 home runs, 133 walks, 201 strikeouts. He hit 12 batters. He had 12 walks, and then he had a total of 17 wild pitches. He had a whip of 1.413. Hits per 9 was 8.8, and home runs per 9 were 0.5. Walks 3.9 per game, and 5.7 per strikeouts per 9. So I would say, I think you're looking at the ERA portion of it, probably not the best. I think he had a rough patch. It's looking like a rough patch between 1987 and 1988. Or I guess that was just the 1998 teams where he kind of split amongst there, where he had a ERA of 6.78 and a 6.29. So I would say that's probably the roughest patches as far as ERA is kind of shot up into that 4s. But majority of the time outside of the later half of his career and that portion of the ERA kind of go up. I think his best year was in 1986 with the Tampa Bay organization, or not Tampa Bay organization. He was just he was in Tampa. It doesn't give me the affiliate who it was. Oh, Cincinnati. So in Cincinnati, his second year was Cincinnati. In that he had an ERA of 1.55. And this is what Lamar Rodgers had to say about Kent Willis here. Experience and success are the first things that come to mind about Kent Willis. He played a vital role for so many years in the Atlanta Braves organization, which for many years one of the best ranked systems for players development in Major League Baseball. Our pitchers should benefit from his 20 plus years of knowledge and wisdom, and he has worked with many who have gone on to have successful major league careers. We're very fortunate that Kent and I excited. We're very fortunate to have Kent, and I'm excited to welcome him to the Cats family. Like I said, Lamar Rodgers is he's looking to win, but he's also looking to develop players at the same time. And I think that leads it to a successful team, to wanting players to come to the South Shore. It's a mixture of the fan base, the location, and the coaching staff. What I really see when I'm looking at all three of those options, the coaching staff is really what is going to drive players to come to the RailCats. If players are moving on to the affiliated ball, if they're just not moving on to the Atlantic League or the Frontier League, if they're moving on to affiliated ball, the RailCats are going to make it a prime location to come to play, to try and win, but then move on to affiliated ball. I think that's what Lamar Rodgers is putting together. He is gaining young players to develop them to get to the next level. That is what I see from the overall aspect of it. Does that sound necessarily appealing to the fan base to a certain extent? Maybe not, but to me, I love it. I absolutely love it, because if you're able to develop players, you're going to be successful. All right, if you're able to develop young talent, they may be with you for 2 or 3. This isn't just going to be they're going to have one breakout year and they're going to be taking an affiliated ball. No, the affiliated the teams aren't going to be like, oh, that guy had a really good year this year, but looking at they're going to wait till year 2. So you're saying if year 1 they had a breakout year, and then year 2 they had another breakout year, okay, maybe eventually they move on, but you're going to cycle those people in and out. Pitching is, has pitching necessarily evolved over the years? It has. You're throwing harder, you're looking at spin rate, this and that, but the thing is pitching, the more experience you have, the more you're able to help players out and help players out in sticky situations. I was looking at a stat. It was a fun little stat. I think the game of baseball, one game of baseball, I think it was it was 1,342,688 possible plays in one game of MLB baseball. That is how many plays are able to happen in one game, possibly. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but having 20 years of experience, being able to watch that much baseball and that many pitches being thrown and develop pitchers in an organization that is now becoming the forefront of MLB baseball, just winning a World Series a couple years. Was it last year before? I think it was a year before. This is something that, you're taking two coaches from highly recent years, highly developed or highly successful teams, and that just doesn't come from drafting players, pulling players from free agency. No, that comes within. That's able to develop no matter what level that these players are at, because you know what, you may help develop someone from single A and they may only get to triple A, but they're going to make the players that a player that should be playing the MLB and a verge player. That verge player is going to make that player that should be in the MLB play better. So it's like it comes out hand in hand in that aspect of it. You're able to put a competition in there. It's just not like, oh, we're going to send you down in the minors because you're not being successful, and then you just completely, dominate down there. No, you're going to go down there and you're going to have to compete, because some of these players are fighting for your job. So I think that kind of helps, and I think the RailCats are in that portion of they're trying to be a development team but be a successful team in general. I mean, this is why you have the American Association. Just looking at it, they were this week in the Merit Association. We're talking to a St. Paul Saint executive, and they were basically talking about, you know, affiliate, now that they're an affiliated ball, that, you know, you're bringing the people that they're bringing in now, as far as like fan base, are fans that want to that are baseball fans. And not saying that RailCats fans aren't baseball fans, and that are people that independent ball aren't fans of baseball, but you bring in more people and stuff like that. I think affiliated ball is a good developmental area, but I think being in the American Association, you are wanting to win and develop at the same time. You're not getting people taking up and down the roster, up, you know, you're getting almost a set roster. So I think what they want to do is they want to be able to develop players, but be able to win and be competitive. And I think that's going to be the biggest draw to the American Association in the years coming, is that they are wanting to play meaningful baseball, and players who necessarily don't maybe want to play in the affiliated ball but want to win and then go to affiliated ball, they may look at coming to the American Association, that kind of stuff. So I think that's what we're working ourselves into. So enough of the on-field product and the players and so on and so forth. I do want to talk about Zach Leston, who is now in the booth, or going to be in the booth, with Ryan Zimmerman. I'm going to say I think Tony Pasquesi is gone somewhere else now. I haven't really been catching up on all that kind of stuff. I think he's doing something with the softball, college softball. So I think he is done with the RailCats, unless he's doing PA announcing again like he did last year. But looking at Zach here, I believe he was doing a lot of work with Syracuse, that kind of stuff, with the Newport Gulls, that kind of stuff. And I want to say that he came from University of Miami, is what I'm trying to get at when I'm looking at this, the alum portion of it. I could be wrong. But it looks like he has done successful amount of, being on TV, doing that kind of stuff, pregame, postgame. So I think he'll bring a different energy to the RailCats, depending on what they're going to do. If it's going to be more of play-by-play, if he's going to be play-by-play, or if he's going to be a color analyst, or they're both going to split duties. I think both of them, I think with both Zach and Ryan, they both have a different tone to settings almost. I would say, I guess the best way to put it is Ryan sounds more like a basketball announcer, and he does do a lot of, he did a lot of women's basketball with Vermont over the winter time, and Zach sounds more like a a WWE announcer. He's got that, when he gets excited, he got that deep voice, and he pronounces the word, and it's just very open and out there. And it's not saying that's a bad thing at all. I think it brings a different aspect to it. Like I said, I think Ryan is a little bit more developed, being the voice of the RailCats, and I think Zach just needs a little bit more development. And I think in the play-by-play area, that kind of stuff. So I think with being linked up with Ryan, I think that's going to be a very good thing for him. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect and that I don't need help and work. And I'm obviously nowhere near the talent level of either one of them. I'm just saying this is what to kind of expect. Looking back at Zach's highlight reels, that kind of stuff, he's gotten himself to the point to where he's going to get professional jobs and he will move on to different areas and so on and so forth. And being outside of college, being outside the college area and that kind of stuff, moving into that kind of forte, I think he is a young, developing reporter, analyst, play-by-play, wherever you want to put him, however he wants to label himself. I think being with Ryan, he's going to really fine-tune his craft, and he'll be able to do something successful. I always love broadcasts that have two people. I think it brings a different atmosphere than just listening to a single person talk. Now, I know both of them are going to have to really change the way they're going to commentate. It's going to be very interesting with the new pitch clock and the new rules. I mean, you're even seeing in MLB games and you're hearing announcers talk about it, that they don't have the time for stories. They're going to give you quick tidbits. They're going to tell you, here, but the pitches are going to be coming. They're going to be coming quick, and the game's going to get moving. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this is all going to open up and so on and so forth. So it's going to be an interesting season. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a heck of a season. I'll enjoy it. I'm hoping y'all enjoy it as well. But that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for me. I'm your host, Kyle Savedich. This has been the RailCats Talk Podcast. If you like the video or like the podcast, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any ideas of stuff to discuss before the season starts or even while the season's going on, send me a message via Twitter, via Facebook, whatever. Say, hey, or comment on the video down below. Like, hey, you should really talk about this. I'm going to be coming in and talking about, I believe, when I look here, who was it? Chuck. He had the idea of he wants my thoughts on other teams seemingly building a whole new roster and the RailCats building off the young core talent. So I'm going to be talking about that. I'm going to be talking about, what I see and how things are going to open up for the RailCats in that portion of it. But like I said, I also have the season preview coming through, that kind of stuff. But be sure to follow the podcast, the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, all the links and stuff that'll be down in the description below. I want you to enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening, whenever you're watching this, and go Cats.